Welcome to Designing Adobe XD, our 5th show. That's pretty awesome. We've been at this now for over a month. Welcome, yeah. Here we are on a Friday. Here we are. Yeah. I'm Talon Wadsworth. I'm the lead designer for Adobe XD, and I am here with one of my favorite people to work with on the Adobe XD team, Lindsay Wallace. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hey everyone, I'm a researcher here at Adobe. I'm on the design team, and I'm working with the team on Adobe XD to help them with the user research part of their process.
Yeah. My partner in crime. We were just actually on some research visits just last week.
Yep.
It was exciting. Spent a lot of time in conference rooms.
That's right.
Actually went to some really cool places though.
Yeah.
So this is a little different. This is a little deep dive, more so than in the past, on kind of how we work as a team. And because it's all not, it's all not pushing, it's not all of it is designing pixels on screen, right? A lot of it is going out and actually setting up a really strong foundation for us to go and design great experiences. And that's where the work that we do with Lindsay is so important. And that's why I really wanted to bring her on. I really wanted to highlight this part of our process that you don't see all the time. In fact, most of the stuff that she does can't be shared externally. It's all very classified.
That's right.
But you see the effects and the impact of the work that Lindsay does inside of Adobe XD and inside of all our other products here at Adobe. And that's why I'm really excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So here we are. Today we are going to talk about the role of user research in the design process. So let's kick that off. I have been zeroing in here. See, there it is. Look, there we are, superimposed. First we're going to say hi to everyone here in the chat.
Hello.
What's going on, everyone? We see some of the regulars: Matthias, Kathleen, Tim. Always great to see Matthias and Tim. They join us.
People joining from Vienna. That's awesome.
Yeah, from Vienna.
Hey.
Andreas, good to see you. Patrick, thanks for joining us. Here we are. If we're here on Behance. If you are catching us on YouTube, if you want to say something, come over to the Behance stream, and you can chat with us and say hi. If you guys have any questions about Adobe XD, about Adobe design here at Adobe, or about research, that's what we're here for. Let us know here in the chat. Because today we are talking again about one of those unseen, sometimes unheralded parts of the process in research and its role in the design process and in product design process here at Adobe. So let's just kind of kick things off. Let's kind of frame this again, because not everybody has this amazing resource in you working with them all the time on their products. So let's define this a little bit. So why user research is really what we want to define today. Like, what is it, and why? Why do we do it? So.
Sure, actually. So I obviously I think user research is really important, and one of the overall kind of high-level benefits of user research is that the more designers know about their target users and the people who are using their products, the better they can understand them and make designs for them. I think you and I have talked a lot about the intersections of anthropology, which is my background, and design, and really trying to understand the way people live and work throughout their days and when they're using our products. So doing really rigorous user research helps us understand those people beyond just how they're interfacing with their computer or the product. So that helps us, rather than just getting kind of targeted feedback on specific things, which we do.
We do that,
We do, but
sure.
If you have a bigger picture, it allows you to, understand, to use that information for a longer time. Products change really fast, and people don't change as fast as products do. So the problems that we're solving for people tend to persist longer than the products.
We get a little caught up in the speed of tech and the way and the digital the digital distribution of our software in particular, and we're just like, this is amazing. Everyone's go along with us here, but people are still out there using CS3 to do their daily design work.
Sure.
Right?
And and when we're talking about something like collaboration, the problem of an engineer having a different language to talk about something than a designer has, for example, that problem doesn't go away overnight, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So they're kind of these deeper problems that we can understand that helps us, design better for them.
yeah, and just kind of touching on this thing that you mentioned, and why, and why I really make it a big part of my process, and why I like to work so closely with you is to build that foundation of firsthand knowledge, right? Like to actually admit to yourself that you don't know everything. Like, I'm a designer, I love to use Adobe products, I love using XD. But I know I'm a little too close to it. I sometimes need to, get up out of that and actually go out and see like how designers are working, outside of Adobe, outside of the Bay Area. Because again, you make a great point. Like people, like, it takes them a while to change. We need to go see what problems they're having now and really build up that knowledge base so we can design better products.
Yeah, for sure. I think that building a foundation of firsthand knowledge really helps us understand what the problems are that we can solve.
Yeah. Deep is joining us here, and he's just saying to Matthias that he's new to design, but he really wants to make cool apps and designs. So, hey, this is a great place to start. Again, I think whether, again, you have a resource, a really talented person like Lindsay working with you, or if you're just starting any design project, you really need to go out and do your homework. You really need to go out and do that research. And so, Lindsay and I are going to talk about the different ways you can go out and do that. But let's kind of, we have a few other points here we want to sort of flesh out why we go out and do user research. And so let's just pop through some of those. Right, this next one, right, like, particularly if you're working on something that again, you don't have personal experience with.
That's right.
Right, really gaining that affinity and building that empathy with the participants in your study or your users or the subject matter that you're going out there and creating amazing, cool apps and designs and services around.
Yeah, absolutely. And my background's in anthropology. I'm not a designer. So that's, part of the way I approach this problem. But it's really, one of the first questions when I work with a designer, one of the first questions I ask them about what they're building is, what problem are you solving? Like, what problem does your user have? And what problem are you solving with this feature, this product, or whatever? And then once you kind of have understood what problem people have, then you can start to evaluate whether or not your solution will actually solve that problem for them.
Yeah, definitely.
But you first have to really think about understanding what that problem is, right? Instead of just like, I want to make this because it looks cool, which sometimes you can make things because they look cool.
That's a good place to start.
That's great. That's great. But also, like, what are the problems and how can we solve them? Really is a great place to start.
One of the things I really like about design now and design across these digital platforms is that you can actually see the impact your design is having.
Absolutely.
Right? And so it's important. Again, you want to have that impact. You want to see people engaging and being successful using your cool apps and services. And you can get that data directly, but before you lay down any pixels or commit any engineering or development resources to it, you want to have a pretty good idea that you're headed down the right path here.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Yeah. And this one, again, like, I think this is super important for our process here as a team, is to really be able to, again, gain that firsthand knowledge, like build that foundation, and then be able to test our ideas early. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, why are we, the reason we're designing Adobe XD and making it is that we believe that designers and researchers and product managers and anyone who has an idea to communicate, once they've built up that foundation of knowledge, they need to go out there and be testing their ideas with users and getting that feedback and iterating very quickly on their designs. And that's really what XD's mission is.
Yeah, and I would just add a little bit of nuance there, which is like we always say on the research team, we're not testing designs, we're testing the assumption that went into the designs. And so there we go. Question assumptions. Perfect timing.
Look at this. We're just clicking on it.
So it's not always about, people will ask us, like, can you go test that design or validate that design? But a design is really, the design is really only as good as the information and the assumptions that went into it. And so it's not that the job of research is to tell you if your design is good or bad, but really just like how well does it align with the needs of the people who are using the product.
Yeah, definitely. And like that's, and I, all these sessions and things that we've been doing over the last week, like, it really wasn't about, like the designs. It really was about like just the ideas and the ways they drove the conversations we have. So, deep. Yeah, I think one thing that we're talking about today, tips for beginners. like do your homework, like do your research, whatever you're designing for. You need to go out there and you need to just find out about it. Just immerse yourself in that subject matter, really build that firsthand knowledge, and that will make your designs better from the get-go. Make your ideas and your designs a lot better. And also check out Adobe XD. Design there, prototype. Again, like you're that first line of defense. You know, you should be like designing and testing those ideas for yourself, building those prototypes and testing those ideas yourself.
And doing your homework can sound really overwhelming
Sure.
or scary
maybe
to a beginner like Deep. But when we say do your homework, we really just mean like talk to the people. Like if you have an idea for a problem you want to solve, or a certain user that you want to make something for. Talk to people who might have that problem.
Yeah.
And watch them if they have that problem, depending on what the kind of thing you're trying to make is. So some of this can get more technical, but at a very basic level, there's just like figuring out who the people are and trying to find them and talk to them.
Well, definitely.
It's pretty basic on the
I
to
think
get started.
It's the foundation of what I think people refer to as design thinking.
Exactly. Right.
Like to really if I have if I see a problem, actually this one came to mind because I was talking about this with a designer the other day. Let's say I need to better help my mom actually ensure that my grandmother is actually taking her pills when she needs to be taking them. Right. So if I wanted to create a service or an app that would help my mom track that, what I would need to go do first is actually go and talk to my mom about how she prepares the pills for my grandmother.
Right.
And then I need to actually interview my grandmother and see if the things that my mom is doing are working for her.
Right.
Right. So I need to go and just have a conversation. Right.
Yeah.
If I see a problem, I need to go build up some of that knowledge before I just start designing.
And not to be creepy, but maybe even watch your grandmother for a while.
Definitely.
Is she actually telling taking her pills and forgetting to tell your mom? And so maybe there's not a problem,
Exactly.
So
maybe
really defining what the problem is. Is it a communication problem or a behavior problem?
Yeah. Definitely. Well, let's switch back. I'm not doing the magic thing. Paco gave me the controls to the switch here, and got a little got a little too carried away. So Lindsay, not only is she great going out there and helping us talk to customers, but she's also been just raising the bar of research across our whole organization. Lindsay is part of our design team actually here at Adobe. Mm-hmm. So all the researchers are actually part of the design team.
That's right.
Again, I think there's a lot of affinity there, so I think it makes a lot of sense to me. And what she's been doing is actually running some training sessions internally. And I thought we could pull out a few of her slides to really start diving into, kind of how you go about, setting up good user research. So to start with, I really liked this research and product cycle. It kind of gives you the phases of how, particularly here, how we're building very very big multi-platform products. But maybe this is something that we could kind of break down and tease out some key steps around this cycle of research. The first, always start with why, and that's just a good sort of thing to do when you're approaching any problem.
Yeah.
Why are you going and doing this?
Right. Why are you making this? Why?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a great diagram. I have to give credit to my colleague Sharma Hendel, who actually made this for me when I started at Adobe as a communication tool to help me work with teams. Just want to shout out where credit's due on this one. So the first step when you want to make something is figure out why are you making this? Define your goals. What's the problem? That's where that question, what's the problem we're trying to solve, becomes really important. So you can see on this slide there are methods that people use to kind of evaluate that why question. Then the next step is who, right? Who has this problem?
Yep.
Who are these people? So in your example with the problem, you've got a problem. Mm-hmm. Is it a problem for your mom or your grandma or both?
Yeah.
So who are the users who have this problem?
Yeah.
What? So what's our, once you have an idea.
What's the concept?
What is
this?
What's your idea?
Yeah,
exactly. So understand, just get some feedback on, is this sort of the right thing? Are we thinking about this in the right way? And then the evaluate design, sort of that how, which is more about the implementation. Is the way that we are solving this, like correct, or is
Yeah.
it working for people? And then, you know, once you've built the product, you never stop improving
you just
it and
continue.
iterating on it. Yeah.
You know, I can actually hear. I mean, this just speaks to me, resonates with me because this has been the journey of XD.
Yeah.
Right. And I think why XD, like why I feel successful in XD is I feel like we've approached it from a very, like, again, very design thinking, very research focused, in a very research focused way, and we followed these steps. You know, very early on, you know, the why of Adobe XD was that, you know, as a designer, you know, all the designers here at Adobe, like we felt like we weren't doing our jobs very well. Like we were now needing to, you know, build, you know, and share designs that were much more interactive, you know, had motion and animation included in them, and we just felt like we didn't have the tools to be able to do that. And then when we looked around, there were new tools cropping up, but they were only fitting like one part of the thing we needed to do. So we knew that what we wanted to do, like why Adobe XD, was to have design and prototyping and then being able to share those all within one app, right? So that was really the foundation of our efforts here. And we had a big study that was the foundation of, like, that really informed us, that was done by another one of our researchers that was here at Adobe at the time. And that really, again, created that foundation of knowledge. Again, that we felt like we knew that we were feeling something, but then we had this research that showed that designers everywhere are having this problem. Like there's something changing in the way that we need to deliver and communicate our ideas. And so, you know, that's really was kind of step one, and we kind of went from there to go out and start putting together a concept. And from those early days, we were, you know, again, testing those ideas, trying to, you know, question our assumptions and get some validation that we were on the right track. And that just led us to have confidence, I think, to finally sort of launching XD, and the confidence from Adobe to say that, you know, we need a product like XD in the lineup. And again, and now here we are working with Lindsay, and we haven't stopped. This is our approach. This is our approach on any major feature development that we're doing on XD. So
Right, and especially with XD, you know, it's still new. The problem that is getting solved is expanding.
It still had that other slide in there. I don't know what happened.
We cannot get rid of it. It's a ghost slide.
All right.
Yeah.
Tell me, this really resonated with me because to me this really speaks to, like, the creative process.
Yeah.
And I liked how you were showing, like, this, you know, the design process and the scientific method, and sort of putting them side by side and saying, oh no, this is actually, look, like, these things are the same. Like, this is just a way of solving a problem.
Well, they're the same and they're different, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So there's overlaps. Obviously, you can see the kind of cyclical nature of both of them, where you start with observation in both cases, and then making a hypothesis or an assumption. Having in here, it's behind my head, but design stands in for prediction, which is what you do in science, and then you do an experiment, and then the outcome of that. Look at that! Wow, it's like magic. Yeah. The outcome of that for science is something that approaches scientific truth, and for design is an experience. And I mean, I think there's some key overlaps. The scientific method is super valuable for designers. Just it helps us speak back again, or like think against this pressure to validate designs, right? Because the word validate can really make it feel like you're just going out and looking for all the ways that you're right.
Yeah.
Whereas when you think about the scientific method, when you set up an experiment, you're trying to disprove your hypothesis.
Yeah, that's true.
You're trying to think of all the places that you've maybe been wrong.
Yeah.
And maybe how can you improve your understanding through being wrong. So that's one of the values I think the scientific method brings. And then the other point that we kind of make here is that, like, even though we're researchers in a company like Adobe, like, we can't do science in the way you would in a university, right? Our timelines are too tight. We don't have a big enough sample size, all of this sort of thing. So we're really, our goal as researchers is to help you guys make the best experience you can without making claims about it being like the ultimate truth, right? Because there's no right answer in design, right? There's a lot of different, there's a lot of different ways to solve that problem. So this kind of nicely calls out kind of the places that these things overlap and the places where they kind of diverge a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that point about proving yourself wrong instead of looking for the ways you're right
Yeah.
is, if I had to leave you guys with one thing about this slide, that
I mean,
would
that's
be
just
it.
in life, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, like I totally believe that, and I think that what's happened maybe a little too often when we have these tight timelines as designers. Again, like whether you're at school or when you get out into your professional world, like there isn't a lot of time, and so you need to use and utilize the tools that you have to be able to learn very quickly,
Absolutely.
and then to make decisions based on that. But you really are trying to prove yourself wrong, and too often we fall into that trap of kind of designing something and then just kind of that's maybe the first or second idea out the gate, and then we don't continue challenging that, trying to prove ourselves wrong, and we just go forward and we just go with it.
Yeah.
Right. And so then we end up with something we've spent now a lot of time and a lot of resources in implementing, and it just falls flat, or it actually has a negative experience for our users and for designers out there. That's the real pitfall.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah. And I know in XD in particular, I could highlight a few of those, but of course we're not here to talk about all the bad parts that I know way too much about this.
Yes.
XD is amazing. Yeah. But we're all we continually want to challenge our assumptions and continue to iterate and make XD better. And we always do that by going out and talking to designers here on the stream.
Yeah.
We kind of got a little deep there, but if you guys have any questions for us, let us know. Like I said, we're just here sharing our experiences, and hopefully, you guys can pick up some tips from that. So let's talk about prototypes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the role of prototypes.
Okay.
As we move in here, I always feel like we just blow through 30 minutes, but
it's quick. 30 minutes is quick.
Yeah. So how do you like to use prototypes? Like, what role does a prototype play in the research process?
Well, prototypes can play, a bunch of different roles in the research process, kind of depending on where you are. I think one myth about prototypes with research that we hear is that you have to have a prototype before you can do research. But actually, you can also make a prototype to answer a research question. So not every prototype not every research project starts with a prototype. Sometimes prototypes are made for research.
Made for research to either answer a question or to drive more conversation.
That's right.
And so in XD, I love XD because you can create prototypes very quickly. You can iterate very fast, and you can share those. But sometimes when you're looking to to answer a question, you can go too far. You can go too far. You can make it too high fidelity, make it feel too real, where the user, like, how do you think about that? Like the sort of the level of fidelity of a prototype. Like, how do you try to fit that into your research? Like, do you see challenges when things are too high fidelity versus I'm leading up to talking about this stack of paper that Lindsay has in front of her, because we make XD to create interactive prototypes that you can click through and make it feel real, and we do something kind of funny with them when we go out and do research.
Yeah. So I would say there is always a challenge with fidelity.
Yeah.
For us, I am not a big fan of testing with wireframes. I think it's important for people to be able to really kind of at least suspend disbelief and feel like they're accomplishing a goal with your product, so you can watch them do that. I like to have it, and you and I have talked a lot about the importance of having a complete scenario for people in a prototype session. What that means for people listening is that we wouldn't bring somebody in to just test one interaction. We think about what we understand about our users and what they're trying to do when they come to this feature, this product, and then we develop a sort of screen-by-screen flow that mirrors all the steps they have to take to accomplish a meaningful goal. Because having someone just come in and play with a slider, you're not going to learn anything from that. But so
usability testing, if you've heard that term out there. Like, what is that telling you? That button worked all right for me.
Right. But if it's a sharing feature, for example, we'd have enough screens so that we could say to someone, who do you share with, and then say like, oh, well, could you share that with Bob using this?
Yeah.
And then, you watch them try and accomplish that and figure out where they run into trouble, if they can get through it, if they understand it, if not, if they would want to do things a totally different way.
Yeah.
So we just have some kind of meaningful goal, have enough screens for people to accomplish a meaningful goal.
Yeah.
So can I show them
Yes,
this?
show them this.
Talon asked me to bring this. This is sort of an example of a paper prototype. Which is
a paper prototype.
Kind of funny that we use these on XD. But they are, we use paper prototypes for early concept testing. They're really helpful for learning where people are understanding a concept and where they're not. And we make people use this kind of like a touch screen. So we'll say like, can you open XD? And they'll have to like use their finger and touch the XD icon and then, go through what they're trying to do on paper.
These screens, just to be clear, are screens that were actually printed out of XD.
That's right.
Like the designer designed this prototype in XD, but again, because KT is on the stream with us today.
Yeah.
Our good friend and talented designer here
Kevin.
at Adobe Design. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Right. This is a prototype that the designer has designed in XD, and then rather than putting that in front of the user, in front of a screen, where the fidelity or their expectations might actually get in the way of us finding out like the answers that we're really trying to hear.
And people just sometimes start clicking and they click so fast, they just go click,
like,
and you can't ask them any questions.
Yeah.
So this way I get to control how fast somebody does something, and I can ask them questions about it. And if they just want to click past, I can say, hold on, I understand that you wanted to click past there, but what's going on over here? And they're like, oh, I didn't see that. I guess maybe there's something, but I don't care about it. Or, oh, that actually looks interesting. And then you can, you learned that they didn't see it, but then you can talk to them about when you make them see what they did see. It helps us control the session a little bit more.
I think that's really
gives
key.
us a higher level of control.
Also, that this isn't the main thrust of those interviews that you're doing. Right?
That's right.
This is something like usually
there's stem for the conversation.
Yeah, let's walk through just real quick because I think that I just came to mind that could be really important. Like, let's walk through like a typical session that we're gonna do. So I know when we were on our trip last week, again we had some questions that we wanted answers to.
Yep.
And we brought with us a paper prototype.
Yep.
But the majority of the time that we spent was really just setting the stage for that paper prototype in a way.
Well, the majority of the time we spent was really understanding the people we were talking to. What is it that you're doing? So all of my sessions start off with about half an hour of interviewing somebody about like their life, what they're not like their whole life, but sort of their professional life. What are they trying to do?
Designers in particular, like what? How are you trying to work?
Main challenges. Who are the important people you're working with? What kinds of projects are you working on? Depending on what people are working on, sometimes we'll ask them to walk us through a past project. We're not interested.
See how they actually work.
Exactly. Like, how did you do this? How did you do this? And then in that case, we're never interested in the content. We're always interested in how they did it and their process. Exactly. And so then that'll help us build a really solid understanding of that person and how they're working and how they're thinking about things. And then we'll, ask them to do something with a paper prototype or with a build. It's not really different.
Yeah, it could be.
And we'll watch them go through it. And even with a paper prototype, I just want to note that I'm never walking someone through this.
Yeah.
They're always driving
it.
So I'm making that, I'm moving the screens in response to their actions. So.
That's really interesting. And I loved, there was this moment that we had, and we had a couple where people were really surprised by our paper prototypes. Again, we had been having this conversation about, and we were really interested in actually helping them to solve some of these problems, and we were hoping this paper prototype started to maybe get at some of those problems. And when we were out there talking, when they would go through the paper prototype, and again, I think the real value to me was that they really saw the whole thing. They really evaluated it holistically rather than just clicking. We know on a screen if there's a thing to do, I'm just like automatically gonna go click that thing and try and see where it goes, and that's how I figured it out. But the paper prototype really lets them step back, look at the whole thing, and when they started to take in like what was going on the paper prototype, they were like really surprised, and they were really pleased and delighted by a lot of things that we were showing, which as they spoke about it and they walked us through their thinking as they were looking at this paper prototype, really started to answer some of those questions that
and we even had that moment where that one person did not want to click on that.
Did not want to click on the thing.
Did not want to click on it.
So funny.
And
there was this thing we were really hoping. Like I was really excited about it, and I was like, all right. Another designer we had showed was really excited by it, but then this one guy was just like, nope, no. I'm not going there.
Yeah. And so we let him not go there, and then eventually I was like, tell me more about this.
Yeah, why don't you want to click on that thing?
Yeah.
Why don't you?
Yeah. It ended up being a good learning moment.
It did.
We learned a lot.
It really did.
Yeah.
Again, here this is a pretty deep conversation, and I really appreciate like everybody here with us but this is an important part of like the design process, right? Is an important part of how we work as a team on Adobe XD is we really want to understand the way that work is changing for designers.
That's right.
And that's really why we're building XD.
Yeah.
I know I want to do my work better. And I know I still have a lot of problems. And I know in talking with designers here who are joining us, maybe they're brand new to design or they've been at it for decades. But the game is always changing, and the problems and work is constantly evolving. And that's really what we're here to figure out. Find out about as part of the XD team, and that's why I just love working with Lindsay so much.
Thank you. Love working with you guys.
Oh
too.
no, that's great.
It's always a pleasure.
Let's kind of wrap things up here.
Okay.
It always just goes so fast. Let's go here and let's wrap up with some tips. Again, luckily we archive these, so if you guys want to go back and reference this, they're going to be there.
Yeah.
And we're going to go through this at a very high level. But again, Lindsay has this great documentation and this great ways in which she's been communicating. So let's pull out a couple of these. What's your greatest hits here?
Yeah, so these are some pitfalls that people run into doing user research.
Yeah.
So when you're visiting a customer or talking to a user, you really want to see where people are doing their work rather than like the polite kind of conference room, living room area. That's right.
I've always felt like when they come into Adobe, they're a little too, like, yes, I love Adobe.
Yeah.
And then when they go home, they're like, I really hate Adobe.
No, that's not what happens. We really advocate having a plan before you go talk to someone. So instead of just putting something in front of someone, cold. Yeah. What do you want to learn about that? Also, kind of similarly, you don't want to only ask people about your product. You want to learn about their life.
But they like,
And
I always say you can't hurt you always tell people, tell me what your problems are. You can't hurt my feelings.
You can't hurt my feelings. That's right. Yeah. I always say, I don't build anything here. You can't hurt my feelings.
I'm secretly crying in the corner.
That's right. Talon's feelings don't matter, so it's fine. It's fine. And then, you want to know who you're talking to so that those people that you're researching are people who have that problem. Yeah. You don't want to talk to your daughter about your grandmother's pill-taking needs. Yeah, wrong person.
Yep.
Exactly. Her answer is not helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else you wanted to highlight on this?
No, let's just
let's go to the next one, right?
Yeah.
Right,
on a more
tips.
Positive note,
yes,
tips
more positive
for
notes.
how to
those
do
other
things. That's right. So one of the big pitfalls we see with research is that people will use research as a weapon to try and prove that I'm right versus you're right. And so we always say that to be successful with research, you want to get everybody bought in during the planning process. So, if everybody agrees what the questions are, you're you're halfway there. You've won that part of the battle. Yeah. And that's going to make your research actually way more useful because your team will be able to use it.
Yep.
And then, so the first part of this is kind of about that. And then again, just like really taking a user-centered approach to research so that you're not just asking people about you. Yeah. Like, hey, enough about you. What do you think about me? Can be kind of a pitfall for user research.
Definitely,
but you're really like, I want to learn about you. How can I help you is sort of
I think
the way we approach it.
You always frame it that way. You're never going to go wrong.
Yeah.
Like, again, as we go out there, it's not about my designs and how I feel about the designs or like how I think the problem should be solved. It's really about the user, the designers, and how they want to use the tool and how they can best use it to be successful.
That's right. And so the other thing is kind of similar to the first thing. Like we'll get asked to do research to find quotes or to make a diagram. Like we want to make a workflow diagram, but you never know what you're exactly going to get.
Yep.
Even the best planning, whatever, it might not be the best way to the best way to
Yeah.
to visualize that. So we try and let the result of the research flow from what we learn, rather than going in on a quote finding mission or going in on with the goal of like we have to make this kind of visualization. It's like we want to learn about this area, and then we'll decide how to visualize it or how to talk about it once we have the data, once we've learned something.
Here we are in this era of where so many more people are interacting with our products and services, right, through these digital devices, which means that we are at our fingertips is all this data, all this information, right? And there's a lot, and we didn't get too deep in it today, but there's a lot you can learn from that.
Yeah.
But that takes a lot of sort of after the fact sort of piecing together. I think, again, what's really important in our process is going in kind of knowing what we want, having a plan.
Right.
Having some questions that we want answered, and taking it out of all this data that's being given to us, and really, having a plan and opinion stated beforehand, and then utilize tools to go and, again, that might not be digital,
right,
to go and just go on the ground and learn directly from designers, like their problems and their challenges, and really removing it from that, right? Setting the foundation of qualitative knowledge around a topic. Right?
That's right. And we do work really closely with the analytics team and with quantitative researchers.
Yep.
Quantitative data is great at telling you the what, and qualitative data is really great for telling you the why.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a partnership for sure.
I mean, again, like always start with why, and like follow a lot of these tips that Lindsay laid out today, and hopefully set your product on the path for success right from the beginning. Again, looking for the things that you don't know, and getting the feedback of what's bad as well as what's good about your design and your solutions. So hey, thank you all for going with us on this,
thank you so much.
Deep talk today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out directly to us. Again, we're going to be back here every Friday. You can reach me on Twitter at Mr. Talon. Lindsay will abstain from the Twitter for the time being.
But I'm available on LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn, or if you have a question for Lindsay, let me know. I'll forward it along. And we we look forward to hearing your feedback. So thank you all for joining us, and see us next week, same time.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.